What does the Halloween franchise mean to me? I thought about this idea, just as one to discuss about a couple of days ago, because it's been quite a interesting couple of years. A lot of people, my little brother included, will see, horror movies when they're a kid, and then that starts the lifelong infatuation or desire to watch more. I was not one of those people. I probably saw maybe Child's Play when I was a kid, the first one, and that was just by like happenstance. Like was clicking around the TV and there was a channel that was playing that. But I didn't see any of the, like just go out of my way to see horror films until becoming an adult. Believe it was in 2021, toward the latter part of the year, like around September ish, that I started, watching Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th, and I watched one series, all the way through, and then the other one afterwards, so that when I saw Freddy versus Jason, I could have a more nuanced position where it's like if you've seen all of one but little of the other, you're gonna go, oh, I'm for this killer in this crossover movie. But then I settled on Halloween, and I'd always been aware of Halloween to some degree because I remember James Rolfe made his review series of it and just brought it up at different times. I know he reviewed the movie, and the movies and the very old game. But I, sat down, went through them, and I guess I get different things out of the series. Like on the one hand, I am in a way kind of glad I didn't see them until I was an adult because people always talk about, oh, you only like this because of nostalgia, and you're more likely to have liked something if you saw it as a kid. But I think there is some merit to just a person who is like neutral, just watching all of these. They hear someone say this is bad, someone say this is good, and then they kind of just go into it with an. I think it gives me a more open mind. Like I can inevitably compare it to other either horror movies or franchises, but I also still, look at it in a way where there's no predisposed disliking of it. For example, a lot of people will say, "Oh, if Halloween 3 had just gone through, we could have had more anthology movies." And I've always said that I know that concept sounds nice to people, right? The idea of, oh, every movie it's a different thing and it's so original and fresh and da. But my issue has been that if people wanted to make horror films that happen to take place on Halloween, they could just call them something else and they'd still be able to make them. And that when you have a franchise where every movie is something different, I kind of feel like it has, like, what's even the point of it being a franchise if it doesn't connect at all? Like if I watch the fourth one without seeing the third or the second one, that's fine. There's no reason to care that about what happened in the previous installments. That's actually one of my biggest issues with, Friday the 13th, for example, that but like after the first four, well, I guess I should say around the time you get to the seventh movie, there's really not much in terms of continuity. Like things don't really carry over from one movie to another, whether it's characters besides Jason or anything like that. And that was always what I enjoyed the most about Halloween as a franchise, the recurring characters. Um, again, I know a lot of people just are so mesmerized by the 1978 film, and I don't need to sing its praises. That's been done to death. But one thing I do like about it is the very low body count, and I can't help but feel like, because I know it came out during a time where that wasn't seen as this big deal, and that there was this shift with Halloween 2 where there were more kills and they're more grotesque. But I always like the idea of, yeah, I'm not going to pretend I have some insight in the Carpenter's mind, but my inference was always that, okay, he kills these three characters in the first film, so if there's a sequel, it'll be about everyone, all the survivors of the first movie reacting to it, right? Like basically, you kill only about a third of of like the named characters in the movie, so that the other ones can endure and still be around and react to it and possibly offer, something in the way of character development. Which, Halloween 2, ironically enough, I like it, but it does abandon a good chunk of the cast from the first film, which I think was to a little bit of its detriment, but I digress. No, for me, Halloween has had, again, that appeal of the recurring characters and also the dynamic of Loomis and Michael. Like, Michael probably would be a more important character to me in terms of just, oh, I like him so much. I like him, but I always said that what really sold the first film for me was Loomis, because as I watched again these other series, other horror movies, it's the characters tend to be certain archetypes. You have your slasher, you have your series of teenagers, and in these other series, you don't really have an authoritative non-police officer well acquainted with the villain character who has this like extremely selfless motive and also adds to the allure of their antagonist. Like I've said, like I'm not even trying to be funny. If the first Halloween didn't have Donald Pleasance in it, I wouldn't say I would dislike it, but it would be a much blander movie. You'd have the teenage girls, they have their distinct personalities, but again, this little like cast of teens and the silent killer that's just in the area. I just wouldn't like it that anywhere near as much. I think he really sold that film with again that performance more than anything else to me. And that again is like what attracts me when there's those streaks of originality, right? Because we always, people talk about, oh, it's so generic, and if you've seen one of them, you've seen all of them, because it's always Michael comes to Haddonfield. But I do think when you have a story that has started, it's easier to build off of that foundation than starting something new. Because you asked me, hey, create a new Halloween movie just set on the holiday of Halloween with an antagonist and a hero, and I'd sit there stumped. But if you said, hey, write a alternate sequel to, for example, Halloween 4 or H2O, it would be much easier because it's a movie that I really like in the case of H4 or in the case of H2O, I'm okay with, and it's easier for me to come up with ideas. And that's, the multiple timeline thing is something that people have mocked, have taken issue with. I don't really see it as that big of a deal because other series do the exact same thing. Terminator springs to mind, where infamously the fourth movie, right, Salvation, what's the other one? Dark Fate, and there's another one, I'm forgetting the name of it. The one with the lady from Game of Thrones. But you had three movies back to back that all tell you to ignore, whatever, that they were all trying to start their own trilogy and just kept on retconning to where the one before didn't happen. And that's just to show that Halloween's not the only series that does this. In fact, I would say that, Halloween has attracted me more than any pre-existing IP of arguably any genre or medium to making original content for it. Like the multiple timeline thing damn near incentivizes fans to say, okay, I believe, 1, 2, 4, and 5, for example, are canon, but 6 is not, and I'm gonna have my own 6. And I'm still, I've talked about working on that, and it's crazy. Even if I never finish that movie, I've got about, multiple chapters of the novel I was talking about written. So there's going to be some bits of content that you get out of me that are just original stuff relating to Halloween. And I don't think that would be the case with, Scream or Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm. And not because I dislike any of those series, but because I think Halloween, more than any of the rest of them, is just such a excellent case study in people having these, diverging points of like, okay, when does this start getting bad? When does this start going in a direction that I don't like? And in my case, I'm trying to, like I believe, criticism is always necessary just for stuff to improve. And I'm someone who wants to be a writer, but I'm trying to at least give a positive spin where, okay, I don't like the sixth movie. Here's my alternate version of what I think they should have done, what they could have done, right, based off of, what actors were available, and just making something that feasibly could have been made back then, even if, certain parts of it, like actually permanently killing off Michael, I'm, entirely convinced would not have happened. But yeah, that's a big part of it as well. Just the alternate timelines and being able to just picture what kind of, like a what could have been, or how this would have turned out. Um, it's a series that means a lot more to me than I would say most others, because it has really good recurring characters. I mean, very nice music. Um, a majority of films that I like to varying degrees, and I will say, for something that you would think is like simple, oh, it's a guy with a knife. There's a lot of lore that you know, even the parts that I don't like the stuff, like the cult stuff in Six, I still can say, hey, at least they tried, right? They were attempting to do something original, take it in a different direction. Um, and like, as a person who wants to write, I respect doing something bold or otherwise not created by the original people that started the IP. It's funny. It's a lot of the things that I had issues with Halloween are pretty much the same as they were when I started making videos about it 3 years ago. The only difference now is that I'm a lot more open to just making content that I wouldn't necessarily say rectifies those problems, but at least kind of like gives my own alternate take of, hey, we could have more of this. Like, I think there should be more Halloween, comics and novels, and hell, I'd even want some animated films, if it's so expensive to just get some people together and shoot a movie over 3 or 4 months. And I'm at least trying to make something. And that's one of the things that I think in the long term is beneficial to me as a fan, that even if my stuff doesn't get the amount of views I'd like or whatever, at least I can say in a abstract sense, it helped me improve as a writer, or was part of writing and just getting more practice with it. So yeah, it's crazy to think that the movie series that came out damn near 20 years before I was born has been more impactful to me than most stuff I've watched, but it has.